Kia ora koutou katoa. Thank you, Justin. It's our pleasure to be here today to be able to support this event. So today I'm going to talk to you about how you can harness the power of AI within your organization. I look after the small and mid-market segment at Amazon Web Services. So for us, that's pretty broad. It's Kiwi companies up to about 80 million in revenue. There's one thing that we do know about these companies, whether you're small or on the bigger end of the spectrum, and that is you're often using a technology partner. And I'm really pleased that a couple of our technology partners are here in the audience today. We have Julie and Josh from Custom D, and also Asa from Canum here. So just briefly, who is AWS? We are the cloud computing arm of Amazon.com. We've been in New Zealand for about 10 years. And we work with a whole lot of different companies. You can see some of them here. So we are investing in Aotearoa, a full 7.5 billion to build a new data centre, which should create about 1,000 jobs for New Zealand. We had some questions in Napier actually about the energy consumption to be able to do this. And I just wanted to touch on how we're addressing that, because obviously when you're doing AI, you are consuming more energy. So we've done a strategic partnership with Mercury to power our Auckland region, and globally we're investing in solar and wind projects as well. The goal for our region in New Zealand is that it's powered by 100% renewable energy. So I want to touch on a couple of topics today. Firstly, how to foster a culture of innovation. If you want to get going with AI, you need to have a culture of experimentation in your businesses. Secondly, what it's being used for. Justin has already touched on some of those use cases and how to get going. Thirdly, Roxanne had talked to having a responsible AI policy, so I'll share a few tools you can use to be able to do that. And finally, some data around New Zealand and how people are investing in AI skills and some free tools that you might like to use to get going. So as regards sort of the topic of developing a culture of innovation, I wanted to talk just a little bit about Amazon, because we're a company of 1.5 million people, and we often get asked, how did you move from being, a seller of books online to, having hardware like Alexa, to having streaming services like Prime? And I wanted to talk a little bit about how that works. So we like to think that we're the world's biggest startup. It's always day one. Day one culture is around always putting the customer first. Day two culture is having more of an internal focus, I would say. And for us, our how is leadership principles. So these are one of the reasons that I joined this business. So Amazon is driven by 16 leadership principles. The first of those is customer obsession, although they're in no particular order. And I think when you think about customer obsession and the AI sort of use cases that you're developing, it's really important to start there. It's great to say, let's do AI for the sake of doing AI, but starting with something tangible that your customers really need is a great place to start. I wanted to dive into another one of these leadership principles, which is bias for action. And this is one we use as a way to really focus on experimentation within our business. So everyone within our business has the remit to experiment, to work out what works, and to scale those experiments to drive us forward. So bias for action. Speed matters in business. So many decisions and actions are reversible, and we don't need extensive study, so we can just get going. We value calculated risk-taking. So practically, we talk about this in terms of one-way and two-way doors. So a one-way door is a decision that we need to make. We really need to dive into the data because it maybe has a lot of investment. So for us, that would be building a new data center. So for those decisions, we take a lot of time. We spend a lot of time looking at the data. Versus a two-way door is a decision that you can quite easily come back from. So maybe it's a product release. And for those two-way door decisions, we say, hey, you don't need to go and get a whole lot of data. Just get going with that and see if it works or not. So that's one of the ways that we've sort of focused on experimentation within our business. So just to talk about AI. So at Amazon, we've been focused on AI for the past 20 years. It's not new. It's essentially the latest advances in machine learning. And just to talk about three of the ways that we have this operating within our business. So within Amazon.com, we shop a bit less there in New Zealand, but I'm sure many of you that have lived abroad have used Amazon.com. So essentially, it makes recommendations, and that's all powered by machine learning. We also have big fulfillment centers with robots that then deliver products to you that are all powered by machine learning. And finally, some of you might have an Alexa device at home that's powered by 30 machine learning models. So machine learning is essentially the basis for AI. But what's changed in the last 2 years is the emergence of generative AI. So essentially making these tools available to consumers through the likes of ChatGPT. So we expect to see lots of innovation on the consumer side. It's really democratized access to AI for consumers. But we at Amazon believe actually there's a long way to go for businesses and lots of opportunity to leverage generative AI for businesses. So I just wanted to talk about a couple of the use cases that we're seeing for our customers. So One New Zealand leverages AI into call centres, resulting in a 10% rise in happiness of customers when dealing with a telco, which is a nice outcome. Sharesies leverages AI into a chatbot called Finn. So essentially, Sharesies is a share trading platform. If you want some customer support, it will actually go in to leverage their content database and provide you with answers. Hector is one in the orchard management space. So essentially they have a product called Spectre, which provides software for orchard management. And they've used computer vision, essentially to be able to size apples. So typically, historically, you would do this. You would have a truck of 130,000 apples and look at 50 of them and then work out from that sort of the average size. But this allows them to actually look at every apple seamlessly and get sort of the right size off to the right countries that want a particular size of apple. Another example of a customer that we work with that I really like is Leonardo.ai. So this particular business was just acquired by Canva, one of our marketing unicorns across Australia and New Zealand. One of the tools I really like to use with Leonardo.ai is text prompts. So essentially you type a few words of text and it will create an image for you. So this was originally set up for game, and in the 18 months it's been, game developers, I should say, and in the 18 months it's been around 1.8 billion images have been created using this platform. So to click through those might take you, 20 years. Customer service is one of the other areas that we see lots of use of AI. I don't know, how many people here have a customer service center for their business? Quite a few. So Amazon Connect is a very easy to use product that we see from small businesses to big enterprises using. So essentially, we'll see a demo of this a little bit later, but essentially AI can answer the phone. It can determine who a person is on the phone. When it gets stuck on a question, it can pass that off to a human that then receives that transcript, and it can guide that human call center agent through questions from that point on. So here's some data from Andreessen Horowitz, one of the leading VCs in Silicon Valley, about what AI is actually being used for today. So I think this is pretty interesting. So the major use case is text summarization. So there's a whole lot of tools you can use today where you put documents into and it summarizes them. Enterprise knowledge management, so obviously you've got data in your organization, perhaps in many locations, so pulling that together. Customer service we've talked about, and marketing we've talked about as well, in the example of Canva. When we think about generative AI, we think about it as a stack, and our customers are actually using AI at all of these different levels. So just to talk about the bottom layer here, so this is the infrastructure layer. So this is for people that are actually building large language models. They're using chips to train AI models. So at this layer, there's probably a few companies across Australia and New Zealand that are building large language models, probably not many in this room today. We work with NVIDIA chips and also have our own Trainium and Inferentia chips, which are at a sort of lower price point, but people are using this bottom layer to build those large language models. So in the middle layer, you actually have these large language models. So we've taken a different strategic approach than others, which is to work with a large number of large language models. You can do that through a service called Amazon Bedrock. I think one of the concerns with AI today is putting data into large language models. So our service Bedrock allows you to add your company data to a large language model without compromising where that data is going. So it's essentially bringing the large language model to you rather than taking your data to the large language model. So this is one that we recommend for companies to be able to protect your data. At the top layer, you have applications. So these are the simplest to get going with, the likes of ChatGPT. We have Amazon Q, which we'll see a demo of later. Justin talked to Perplexity, which is one I use every day now. I have the app on my phone, and I use that for search now rather than Google. So this slide shows just some of the large language models that we're working with today. They're all different, and I think it's really important to note that we're really just at the start of the marathon when it comes to AI. We don't yet know which one of these is really going to be the best. There's a public source you can go to, which has the latest data. Based on tests. As I mentioned, our strategy is to work with a broad range of startups and large language models. I like to liken it back to sort of 99, 2000, when search engines were first starting. So I was living out in the Bay Area in that time, and there was a search engine called Ask Jeeves that I was using, and then a computer science friend said, hey, have you tried this thing called Google? And suddenly everyone sort of switched to use that. So I think these applications we have for generative AI are very much just the tip of the iceberg, though. So I've been doing a bit of work with the Institute of Directors recently, and one of the things that we really advise boards to do is to invest in your data foundation. So there's a saying, garbage in, garbage out. Justin has said get going regardless, but it is important to invest in making sure that you've got clean data that you're using in your AI models, making sure you're storing it effectively, that you have the right integrations, and the right governance and compliance as well. And in doing this, your data can become your differentiator. So you can think about AI and everyone has access now to these large language models. How do you differentiate yourself? You differentiate yourself by your company data and adding that into a large language model. You can think about it in the call center example. So, you're bringing your customer data in so you can see exactly the history of what's been going on with that customer. I just want to reiterate this point with Amazon Bedrock, our product that allows you to work with large language models. None of your customer data is used to train those large language models. All of your data is encrypted in transit and protected. So back to responsible AI. So yes, have an AI policy. Here are 8 dimensions that we have at Amazon Web Services to talk about the responsible dimensions of AI. You'll find many different iterations of this, but just to talk about a couple of those. So fairness, so considering the impacts on different groups of stakeholders is one of these. Veracity and robustness is another, so achieving the correct system outputs. Explainability is another, so being able to explain actually what's happening, in that model that you are using. Ahead of this, I tested the concept of veracity and robustness by using Leonardo.ai to see if I could generate what this room would essentially look like today. And here's what popped up. So I think this is providing a few suggestions for Justin that we need a truck with robots for next year. You have Mount Taranaki in the background there. And I think there's maybe a few too many suits. The AI thinks that there's a few more suits worn in New Zealand, but here's some images I've generated today of this particular event. So a final topic I want to talk about today is around skills. So it's really important for us to be upskilling our workforces at the moment. I want to share some data about a study we did. Justin talked to this briefly. I'll share a little bit more detail. So essentially, we went out and surveyed around 1,600 employees and 500 employers about AI and the use in businesses. So 90% of Kiwi companies said they'll be AI-enabled by 2028. And that's not just in IT sectors, it's across all industries. So everyone recognises the importance of this. A full 79% of workers want to develop their AI skills to advance their careers. And this isn't just Gen Z. You can see here that a full 70% of baby boomers want to develop these skills as well. Important in a cost of living crisis, AI skills can boost pay between 30 to 41%. So I think that's a very, very interesting statistic. And then this one I really like for New Zealand. We're known, particularly in the small business segment, for having pretty low productivity in New Zealand. So there's expected to be a 49% productivity payoff with an AI-skilled workforce. And that's across all types of activities. So how can you get going? In terms of skills, we have a whole lot of free courses. If you simply Google AWS Skill Builder and AI, all of those courses will magically appear. So we'd recommend if you want some free courses for your people, that's a great place to go. We also have a couple of free credit programs for people to get going. If you're a startup, we have AWS Activate, which gives you up to 100,000 US in free credits per year. Or if you're more of a core SME, for people that are new to AWS, we have something called AWS Lift, which gives you up to 83,000 US dollars in credits per year. So thank you. Please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or come and ask any questions today.